I am going to talk to you today about telling yourself the truth. And I'm here today to talk to you about one of the instances of where me telling my truth led to a huge part of my personal liberation. Let's get it. As you may know, my name is Alani. I am a licensed psychotherapist and a psychotherapeutic coach. I help Black and brown women to overcome trauma and to achieve those big goals. I get a few compliments about my style, the way I look, the way I dress myself, my hair. You might not know from the camera, but I have a huge tattoo on the side of my head. And people look at that and think, wow, that's beautiful. But they see the end product of healing and they lack the insight and understanding about what it took for me to get to this point where I can share myself with the world and show myself openly, because I couldn't always do that, or at least I didn't feel able to always do that. What many of you may not know is that I have an autoimmune disease called Hashimoto's. In fact, I have two autoimmune diseases, but the main one is called Hashimoto's. But part of that started right back when I was 17 years old, when I started to lose my hair. And it was falling out at, not in clumps as they do in the movies, but it started out with like a little tiny patch like this big, and it grew over the years. And I did what so many Black women are taught to do. Don't deal with it, just cover it up, because your healing isn't important, essentially, is what the message is. I didn't know that to articulate it at the time, but I knew enough at that point in time to understand that your hair is your crowning glory as a Black woman. And for you to be somebody who has hair loss is potentially a source of shame. So I walked with a lot of shame and a lot of guilt, and I covered it up for decades. People around me didn't really know that I had hair loss. They just sort of thought that, you know, Zolani was rocking the same hairstyle for decades on end. And I can sit and I laugh about it now, but at the time it really wasn't a laughing matter. But I was steadily losing hair year after year after year after year after year after year. And the magnitude of the situation was growing and growing and growing and growing. I didn't know to say anything, and I didn't know to ask for help. In fact, at that time, I didn't know I needed help, which sounds really weird. But I think Black women so often live with really adverse situations and have no idea that they're living in adversity. We're so good at adapting to struggle and adapting to difficulty that we don't even realize that we're in struggle and difficulty. I knew cognitively that I had hair loss. I didn't know that it was a huge problem. I didn't know it was something that I should seek help from. I just thought it was something I needed to cover up. It's a condition that got worse and worse over the years. And it is also a condition that meant that my hair follicles, as they fell out, completely died and were destroyed. So there was no reviving the hair. I didn't know this at the time. And I would go and I would try and do all of these fantastical things in secret to try and grow my hair again. So I was trying to fix the problem behind closed doors and unsupported. How many of us know that story? You've got something that you've got to work on, but the bridge from where you are to getting help feels like light years away, and feels like it's so far beyond where you are. I remember thinking at one point, I'm beyond help. By the time it had reached its peak, I had lost maybe about 3/5 of my hair. So that's the majority of my hair was not there. My saving grace, or what felt to be my saving grace at the time, was that I had thick hair. I had big old thick hair. So the hair that I did have was big, was thick, and I could kind of cover up what hair loss I had. But what it meant is on a daily basis, there was like these constant situations. If there was wind, oh child, if there was wind, I was like walking down the road like this. because if these sides would have lifted, it would have revealed there was no hair. There was no hair. No hair here and no hair here. And I was trying to cover up all of this hair loss, doing all sorts of crazy and fantastical things to try and cover up the problem, rather than just saying, I'm stuck and I need some help. I didn't have the words to articulate that I needed help. But this is one of the issues that we deal with as Black women, is that we don't even recognize majority of the time that we are in a situation where we actually even need help. Do you know what I mean? We kind of feel like this is just my lot. Let me just deal with it. Let me just get on with life. And that is like, we're so good at that. And in some ways it's such a blessing, but in some ways it holds us back so much. This, I'm just going to get on with it. If we could just stop and just say, I'm struggling and I need some help. I don't even know what help I need, but I need some help. If I could have found the words to say that, oh, by gosh, my journey would have been so much easier. And I would have had so much less turmoil and anguish before I got to my liberation. I got to the point where I had to tell myself the truth about where I was with my hair loss. I had actively avoided looking at the full totality of my hair loss. And that was tough. It was tough to sit down and part my hair and to look at how much hair I did not have. It was scary because I was left to see how much I had neglected myself. And that's not to say that I was living in this complete state of self-neglect. I wasn't. I had a very successful outward life. I was living a lot of wonderful experiences in my life, but there was this big thing that I was keeping to myself. It was literally like one day I was in denial. The next day I looked at the truth of who I am starkly, told myself the truth about my situation, and through that truth, realized that change needed to happen. I couldn't go on being the person who I was. This was holding me back so much. So I started to embrace my hair loss, and slowly it started to lose its big, scary hold over me. I'm really fortunate, actually, in that I do the work that I do, because it meant that through my career, I had built these internal tools that I could utilize to do my own healing. And I know that puts me at an advantage, but it was so needed for me. And so when I really started to look at the truth of my hair loss, not the fantasy I created about it in my head, not what I had told myself about it, not what I thought or felt about it, but looked at it in its true totality, that something amazing happened. And I realized there was a pattern. It had shape and form to it. And it was almost perfectly in a natural mohawk. It was literally pretty much as you see my hair now in a mohawk, whatever you want to call it. That's how my hair loss was. So you might think that I shaved off all this head on the sides of my hair, all this hair on the side of my head to create this style, but this style was already here. This is this is the gift of that my hair loss gave me. And once I realized that my hair loss was in a natural Mohican style, it was like a whole new realm of possibility opened up for me. A whole entire possibility that I could never have foreseen for myself if I hadn't looked at the truth of my hair loss. And it took me a while, it took me a long time, but once I made peace with having a mohawk and having shaved sides on my head, and once I made the decision that I'm not going to go back, I trusted that this new doorway that had been opened for me was good, that there was no nasty surprises, that it wasn't going to be snatched away from me again. I wasn't going to be left in a worse situation. I trusted that little tiny voice that said, go for it. I shaved off the remaining little bits of my hair in private. Nobody knew I was doing it, including my partner at the time, actually. My partner at the time didn't even know. I shaved off the sides of my head, what little hair there was left, and sat with it and cried and grieved and mourned the loss of the potential that I thought was there. And then once all of that grieving was done, what was left was this perfect mohawk. And so I went to town with the mohawk. And I said to myself, what would happen if I had the audacity to take the one thing that has been the source of shame and guilt for decades of my life, and I made it beautiful? What if I adorned it in the way that I would the most beautiful room of my home? And so I did. I sat and I designed the perfect tattoo that I wanted on my head, and I went to a wonderful female tattooist who was wild, but wonderful. Literally, she had her eyeballs tattooed. I'm not even joking. And she adorned the heck out of my head. And cut to today, and I walk proudly with my hair. Will it stay that way? I don't know. Will it change? Yeah, most probably. And is that all right? Yeah. Is that scary to some degree? Yeah, probably. But I also know that all that I need to do at any point is just tell myself the truth about my situation, get the help that I need in order to move forward. And when I tell myself the truth, wonderful doors open that offer me new realms of possibility, that offer me options that I would never have been able to see. There's that saying that the solution is never far from the problem. If I didn't look at the truth of my hair loss, I would never, ever, ever have seen the beautiful gift of this wonderful hairstyle that I love so much, staring me right in my face, literally, the side of my head. So I say all that to say we all have our truths that we need to tell ourselves. Now, for me, it was hair loss. For you, it will be something different. It might be the truth about how happy or not that you are. It might be the truth about your relationship. It might be the truth about your job. It might be the truth about your country. It might be the truth about a whole host of things in your life. Let me tell you, and let me guarantee you, telling yourself the truth and getting help, the truest way to your own liberation. When we hide, the only person that suffers the most is ourselves. And I say this from the bottom of my heart. If there's one thing that I hope you take from this video, it's that your liberation is right next to your pain. I work with Black and brown women all over the world, supporting them in telling the truth to themselves, setting themselves free, and achieving their goals. I do that through coaching, and I do that through psychotherapy. I help people to look at the truth of their situation and to go from there, to see doorways that you didn't know were there, to step into new realms of possibility that you just didn't even know existed. Stop trying to do it on your own. Unsupported is so yesterday. Start with downloading the Black Women's Contentment Scale as a starting point. What the Black Women's Contentment Scale is, it's like a bit of a self-assessment where you take a look at different areas of your life and you find out actually where you are in terms of thriving in that area of your life. Step one of telling yourself the truth. Jump onto my website. It is www.zolanitherapy.com. There's also a link in the description box. So I challenge you, what truth are you not saying? What truth have you been too frightened to say? It might be a big thing like hair loss, like mine. It might be something much smaller. It might be something that feels 10 times bigger. I guarantee you, getting the help that you need will deflate the situation. We are done with doing things unsupported. We don't need to do that anymore, Black women. We don't need to struggle on our own, Black women. We're not doing that anymore. put it down. All right. Thank you so much for listening and watching. All right. Bye.